insurance companies, right?
You would have options. You would have, it would be like, our would have a plan that would be, that Medicare would pay. It would be different associations, but that's where your bargaining power is going to come from. And
But
there
you
would-
have to go out and search and.
No, you will be, I will guarantee you will have more options than you ever dreamt, and you'll have more information than you ever thought you could read. Because they, no, well, you will. But there'll be various, with the incentive there, that the estimate is that 97% of seniors will sign up for it. Because if you're an average person on Medicare today, your drug bill is $2,150, you're going to save at least 45% of that. But also remember that your drug costs to start with, the ones you're taking, are going to be 70% of what you're currently paying. So in total, it's going to be well over 50%, probably 60 to 70% savings out of pocket for the same amount of drugs that you'd be taking today.
So, okay, like my husband just went on Medicare, but after pushing the pencil, he did not sign up for a supplement because, you know, it would cost us more.
Right.
Than staying with our insurance company.
How much do you have, an estimate how much you spend in a year?
Around 10,000.
You would save $7,300. The most you could pay would be $3,700.
Would he
There,
be
because
able to sign up?
There's a
you know,
cap, there's a cap on
Would he be able to sign up since he's not signed up
it.
for
Absolutely.
the
Anyone
Part B
in
right now?
Medicare can sign up, absolutely.
Though he doesn't have the Part B, he could still get in.
Sure. This is a new benefit under Medicare, which would allow everyone to sign up. Absolutely. You save, now the catastrophic cap is $3,700. Anything above that will be totally paid for with Medicare. And that's, you know, that is a huge issue, like with my mother. You know, having worked, she and dad for all their lives, and the idea that they would have some catastrophic illness there, you know, that would cost $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year.
That's a huge issue for us.
Oh, it is, absolutely. But it would finally, you know, and it's a fine line, you know, to have a benefit that is helpful to the lowest income folks, that is real to them, but also have some kind of a limitation on what you can spend and be responsible to our kids and grandchildren. I mean, there's going to be some plans that people talk about. They're going to cost, if they would actually do an estimate, probably over $1 trillion over the next 10 years. It sounds good, except who's going to pay for it? And I can promise you the moon if you know it'll never happen. But I think we've got to be responsible. That's all. We've got more questions. Anything else? We don't have to stay here till 12 or anything, I can be sure. We got lots of donuts over here. We can eat them. So. Yes, sir.
I have a question. It doesn't relate to healthcare. It relates to rural Iowa.
Yes, sir.
Agricultural economy. I do a lot of work in drainage over the last 50 years, and so I follow very closely. And we've had a lot of alcohol interference by environmentalists and federal agencies in trying to maintain and improve our drainage district facilities. And in my judgment, the drainage district facilities are the lifeblood of our agricultural economy, at least in northern Iowa. And it's been very difficult over the last 15, 20 years to maintain these, and individuals are being curtailed on their ability to upgrade their drainage facilities. And the reason I bring it up is that I think it was a year ago, the United States Supreme Court ruled on a case out of Illinois, near Chicago, and said, I think perhaps you're aware of the fact that most of the jurisdiction that the federal government takes over wetlands is by virtue of the Army Corps of Engineers. In some cases years ago being eventually granted jurisdiction over all waters, regardless of what they consist of or where they are. But the United States Supreme Court about a year ago ruled on a case out of Chicago that the Army Corps of Engineers had gone much further than the law ever intended in assuming jurisdiction over waters of the United States, and that actually their jurisdiction would be limited to those waters which are tributary to a navigable stream, such as the Missouri River and the Mississippi River. There are very few navigable rivers or streams in the state of Iowa, and yet the federal government has seen fit to take jurisdiction over nearly everything out in the middle of a cornfield that never had any, wasn't tributary to anything, merely because of the fact that the soil had a certain type, hydrophytic soil, is for hydrophytic plants. I guess now the Supreme Court has ruled that they went too far in asserting a jurisdiction when or and if will the federal government, other agencies, start adhering to that decision.
You open up a really good subject and very.
I don't mean to disturb your
Well,
program,
I appreciate very much the. As you're well aware, here in Pocahontas was kind of the epicenter as far as the ag drainage wells, and that I think that's probably what has brought a lot of this about. And the environmental concern. I mean, I live on a farm at Alexander, and I drink water out of a well. It comes out of the same aquifer you have here. And what concern is, obviously, the state's for it, everyone agrees we've got to cap those ag drainage wells. But we also have to have relief someplace else to continue to have either some type of drainage available, or we revert back to the swamp that we were 100 and some years ago here before they punched the holes in the bedrock. The problem we have, as you're I'm sure keenly aware, is there's 4 federal agencies. It's the Army Corps of Engineers and 3 others, the Fish and Wildlife, or Interior, USDA, and the EPA, that all claim jurisdiction. And what has happened, the Army Corps of Engineers has wanted to give permits here a long time ago to allow us to fix the problem we have. They're being threatened with lawsuits from EPA, from Fish and Wildlife, and somewhat from the USDA. Is not as bad with them because they recognize prior converted wetlands. USDA does. But they all have different standards. They're out for mitigation. Some are 1-to-1, some are 2-to-1, some acres going to wetland to mitigate the boat taking. Army Corps of Engineers finally, and this was the test case, was Pocahontas County, and they finally issued the permit, and basically said to Fish and Wildlife and EPA that we're going to issue the permit. If you want to sue us, fine. They chose not to. But that has been the precedent, and I mean, Pocahontas County broke all the glass on this as far as for Wright County and for Humboldt County and everybody else. So the Corps actually is trying to do the right thing, and they understand that. But what they're under threat of is lawsuit basically from the other federal agencies that all claim jurisdiction. And I will just tell you that, we have tried to get one agency to have jurisdiction on the issue, and you are a demagogue called anti-environmentalist, everything else, if you don't stay with the current bureaucratic regime, which doesn't allow you to do anything. And that's really where it's coming from. It's not that case ruled on the Corps, but it's still the EPA and Fish and Wildlife, in some cases USDA, that also claim jurisdiction, and they're not subjected to that. But the Army Corps of Engineers originally, they claimed jurisdiction more because of dredging and where they would put the silt from the dredging, and that's where they've expanded their jurisdiction, basically saying that because that silt comes out a waterway and where we put it